Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with more King Arthur Knight's Tale, and this time I want to talk about Sir Balan, a champion that you get very, very early in the game, and one of my favorite heroes during my Righteous Christian run. So I've heard some feedback from several of you that you would really like me to go over the traits that characters have in addition to the abilities in this video. So, as promised, I'll go ahead and do that. So Sir Balan has three traits. First is progressive, which means he's going to gain 10% more XP than the other party members that you have. Very, very nice, obviously. Next, he has fellowship, which means he's going to get a +1 loyalty after every other rightful hero in the round table. So you can get up to an additional 6 loyalty just from keeping rightful heroes in your party. And then finally, Defender of the Bridge means he gains 100% loyalty from the court title Defender of the Bridge. You're going to get that court title, or rather that court title will be available to you in your round table within Camelot when you're able to officially recruit him, or when you have to choose between him and his brother. So basically, if you have him, then you have the ability to set him as a defender of the bridge and gain this loyalty boost. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and get into his abilities. This man has a nice little kit. Of course, we've already went over strike several times. It's going to do 100% weapon damage. You can also get the upgrade that's going to put 20% vulnerability on your opponents. You can reduce all of your cooldowns by 1 when you kill with strike. You can increase the weapon damage it does by 15%, and you can cause bleeding. Definitely want this. I'm pretty sure he automatically comes with it. And you definitely want these 3 upgrades. I've mentioned before that bleeding is kind of situational. At least for the first 7 or 8 levels of the game, you're going to run into a lot of enemies that are immune to bleeding. However, when you get past that point and there are a lot less undead, you'll run into plenty of powerful enemies that bleeding works on very well. So I would venture to say, bleeding is not useless, but you probably want to wait until mid-game before you actually take the time to activate these bleeding upgrades that are available for these missions. And once you do that, you definitely want to take extra bleeding, which is going to cause a 50% weapon damage bonus for bleeding effect. So again, not all that useful early game, but mid-game and late game, it's going to be a powerful combo for you. Next up is Guard, which allows the hero to gain a certain amount of armor for 1 turn. Monster ability. Monster ability. First and foremost, the armor boost is to some degree based upon your level, which means you're going to get more and more armor from this ability as you level up. And it basically allows you to, for 1 turn, play as the tank. So if you are maybe farther out than Sir Mordred is, and you know you're about to be swarmed by a bunch of enemies, you pop this on, and essentially you can escape from a bunch of them swarming around you unscathed. And then you can go ahead and use the rest of your talents to light them all up. As far as upgrades, you get the ability to take the defensive stance while losing only 50% armor from attacks. You can reduce the cooldown by 1. You can gain 29 temporary HP while you're in the stance, and you can increase your physical debuff resistance by 30%. In my mind, all of these are worth it. Go ahead and definitely pick that up. Next up is Power Attack. This is going to do 150% weapon damage to an adjacent enemy with 15% armor breaking. Another monster ability that you should absolutely take. There are a ton of enemies in this game that have armor and will be vulnerable to exactly what this attack does. As far as upgrades, you can get an additional 25% weapon damage if the targeted unit has full HP and full vitality. This situation occurs all the time. This should be the first upgrade you pick up for this ability. You can also reduce its AP cost by 1, and have it cost 30% vulnerability for one turn. I definitely feel like all three of these upgrades are very useful to you. The fourth one allows you to stun enemies, but is going to increase the cost of this skill by one. I personally don't think that is worth it. But you can make your own personal decision if you end up having characters who maybe get more damage against stun targets. Also note that way down here on the final slide, he does have extra stun. So it's going to create 50% efficiency for stun and slow effects. So you can definitely get to the point where even against major characters like bosses, you will be able to stun them and impact their AP. Next up is Rage. You're going to gain a plus 10% stackable weapon damage for 2 turns after every kill. As far as upgrades, it's going to increase the weapon damage bonus that you get. You can make the Rage last for an additional turn. You can make it so that the hero gains 1 AP for each kill while Rage is active. And you can make it where the hero gains 6 HP for each kill while Rage is active as well. So on the one hand, this kit is extremely powerful and it's definitely going to make Sir Balan better. On the other hand, I personally don't like it because there are so many awesome active skills that you have to use as a champion, and these require a lot of points for you to flesh them out. I kind of feel like I don't have enough points to include this in my overall build. Even though it's certainly going to help you do more damage, the abilities as they are, as long as you're diligent about your gear, they're going to do a ton of damage anyway. Especially with Juggernaut, you have to walk towards all of these enemies, so you're going to be racking up more weapon damage that way as well. I personally don't bother with this, but if you wanted to get the maximum out of the damage you're able to do, or if maybe you wanted to let go of one of these active skills, it wouldn't be a bad pickup at all. Speaking of Juggernaut, it's going to allow you to gain 5% weapon damage for each tile of movement until the end of your turn. Monster skill that you should definitely be picking up. Balan doesn't have a way to move around on the battlefield, so you have no choice but to manually walk to everything that you want to attack, which means Juggernaut is just about always going to be in effect. So go ahead and make sure you pick it up. We've already talked about extra bleeding. Strength is a no-brainer, an additional 10% in weapon damage. On the second slide, first up is Cleve. It's going to do 75% weapon damage to every unit in a 3-tile wide area. Monster skill. Definitely want to pick this up. You're going to be able to use it all the time. As far as upgrades, you definitely want to get the additional 15% weapon damage for Cleve. The other ones you kind of make a decision about. Me personally, I don't like using knockback on my frontline fighters because I want them to hold the aggro so that my marksmen and my arcanists don't end up having to come face to face with enemies. However, if you play your champion more as a roamer, someone who kind of goes around the sideline or the back line trying to pick vulnerable targets, having knockback on your abilities is useful because it allows you to break engagement and walk wherever it is you want to walk. So you have to considering your playstyle and team setup, whether or not this makes sense. The other one is Cleve will deal 20% weapon damage to its center. This is, of course, really, really nice. But just keep in mind, tactically, there's no way for you to really ensure that there is an enemy in the center or that the enemy you want to take that extra damage is in the center. So me personally, I kind of usually don't bother with it because you can't plan around it, but it's definitely a nice weapon bonus. And then the last upgrade is Bleeder, which is going to allow you to put bleeding on enemies every time you cleave. So same situation as Strike. You can make a decision about whether or not bleeding fits into your playstyle. Next up is Earthshaker, which is going to deal 120% weapon damage to a chosen unit and everyone along its path. Another monster skill. This cannot be blocked, and it's basically the only way for you to attack a particular enemy at range. So at the beginning of the game, you are going to walk as much as your AP will allow you to, and a lot of times it won't be enough to reach enemies. So you'll have to burn a turn waiting for enemies to come closer so you can actually attack them. Once you have this, Whatever area you're able to walk to, you'll be able to point this up to an additional 6 squares to be able to hit an actual enemy, which for the most part means that you should be able to hit an enemy every turn that this is available, as long as you have the AP. Monster ability. You definitely want to get the upgrades that'll increase the tile range by 2 and that'll increase the weapon damage by 15%. You could also put slow onto enemies, but again, you could choose based on your playstyle whether or not that makes sense. Me personally, I don't bother with slow. I never care about how quickly an enemy is walking, but you might have party members who do more damage towards slow enemies, so it might make sense for your particular team makeup. And same conversation about knockback as before. You can make a decision about whether or not it works for you. Next up is Vengeance. When an enemy hits the hero gains 10% weapon damage against that enemy until the end of the encounter. Upgrades will allow the hero to gain 2 AP if they have no HP. You can start your turn with 1 AP if you receive at least 2 hits during the enemy's turn. The less HP the hero has, the more weapon damage the hero deals. And finally, you can gain 4 unbreakable armor when you have no HP. So, me personally, I don't like taking skills that require my hero to have no HP in order for it to trigger. Having no HP is an absolutely terrible situation and puts you at tremendous amount of risk. So tactically, I keep my champion out of those types of situations. So for the most part, these upgrades wouldn't apply to me. There is a case to be made for just taking Vengeance on its own so that you get a free 10% increase to your damage anytime an enemy hits you, which of course will happen. Sometimes the champion isn't able to kill an enemy on the same turn that you engage with it, or sometimes you're just stuck out of no man's land and enemies will be able to run up and take a hit. So that 10% increase is nothing to sneeze at, but me personally, since I'm not interested in the upgrades, I'm not interested in the main skill either, and I go ahead and skip over it. You can make a decision for yourself if it works for you. Armorer. The hero loses 1 less AP from heavy armor sigils. Absolutely, definitely want to go ahead and pick this up. Heavy armor, which is what champions always wear, decreases AP by 2 unless you take this, which will then have it decrease AP by 1. And that 1 AP can be the difference between you attacking once or attacking twice in a turn. Definitely want this. Robust will increase vitality from accessories and trinkets by 10%. HP from armor sigils by 10%, and physical debuff resist by 10% as well. So obviously overall, it's going to make Sir Balan more sturdy. You have to make a decision based upon how your playthrough is going, whether or not you need this. Me personally, guard works great, and for the most part, I can trigger it in a way where he is fine from an armor and hit point standpoint until I can. If you find that that's not the case and he's getting shredded all the time, then you definitely want to consider go ahead and picking this up. Quick note before we get into the last tile. If you've enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you hitting the like button. I use this information to determine what kind of content my channel is enjoying, and it helps my video spread to more people. I really appreciate all of the support. Okay, looking at the abilities on the last tile. First, we have Whirlwind, which is going to deal 120% weapon damage to all adjacent units. You can upgrade it where it does 15% more weapon damage, where its AP cost is reduced by 1, which means it's going to cost 5 AP. It can do knockback, and it can cause bleeding. So, of course, with knockback and bleeding, same conversations as before, you can figure out whether or not it works for you. Me, personally, I skip Whirlwind because there's almost no situation where my champion is completely surrounded on all sides. Most of the time, my tank is already drawn aggro, and my champion is running up to help clear out enemies so that my tank can get some relief. And because you're walking up to enemies in this fashion, usually I'm using Cleve because I can position myself in a way where I can hit enemies, 2 enemies at the same time with all of them in front of me so that nobody is getting backstabs. If Whirlwind is needed, that more than likely means you've got enemies on your side or at your back. and you're just getting completely overrun. Those situations are rare, at least in the way that I use Sir Balan. And so because of that, I don't pick up Whirlwind. But if you use him as basically someone that you just like to throw into the fire, this, of course, is a power you're going to get a lot of usage out of. Next up is damage focus. The hero gains 5% weapon damage per unspent AP from the previous turn. Highly recommend you pick this up not only for the main ability, but more specifically for the upgrade. AP spent on Overwatch counts as unspent for the purpose of the damage focus skill, which means when you walk up, but you can't get far enough to reach an enemy, and you activate Overwatch in anticipation of that enemy walking up and triggering the attack, if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, the game will take that AP and translate it into extra damage on your next turn. That's absolutely fantastic because otherwise the AP is just wasted. And even with having Earthshaker, you see that it has a cooldown of 3 turns. So sometimes it'll be on cooldown. Sometimes even with the range of 6, you just can't get close enough in order to be able to pull this off. So being able to activate Overwatch and be confident that the AP will be useful to you one way or another is absolutely fantastic. For the other upgrades, it's going to allow the hero to gain 4 armor per 3 unspent AP. It's going to allow you to gain 3% weapon damage per unspent AP. And finally, the hero is going to gain 1 AP per 3 unspent AP left in the previous turn. I think all the upgrades are great, and you should definitely pick up the main skill and the Overwatch upgrade. But if you got 3 points to spare, I would say you should get the entire thing. Same with this next one. Melee expertise. While outnumbered, the hero gains 2 unbreakable armor and 5 mental debuff resist and physical debuff resist for each adjacent enemy. That's cool, but you shouldn't be really getting outnumbered all that often. What is absolutely fantastic is its upgrade, Killing Spree. When killing a unit, the hero automatically attacks another adjacent enemy with a free strike skill. I mentioned this upgrade before and said that it was bugged and it was spending the AP. It has since been patched. So now you appropriately get a free strike skill. This thing looks absolutely fantastic, and strategically, it is great when it triggers, really helps with your AP management. I highly recommend you pick it up ASAP. Like as soon as this tile is unlocked, I think these two are what you should be immediately going for. As far as the other upgrades, you can increase the amount of weapon damage you get when outnumbered. You can have it where the hero starts with 1 AP for each adjacent enemy above 2. And all cooldowns are reduced by 1 turn if the hero starts their turn outnumbered. So this is only useful to you if you see a lot of situations where Sir Balan is outnumbered. Me personally, I don't. But if you do, you probably want to go ahead and pick up all of this. We've already talked about extra stun. If you're using stun and slow effects, go ahead and pick this up. Hardened armor, reduce armor loss by 20%, regardless of your playstyle. You absolutely want to pick this up. And in fact, I would say this upgrade and this one is neck and neck as far as which one you should get first when you get down into this section. And then finally, extra area damage, an additional 20% weapon damage for every skill that deals damage in an area. Definitely recommend that you pick this up. It's going to make your Cleve and your Earthshaker more powerful. And if you picked up Whirlwind, it's going to make Whirlwind more powerful as well. And that is my complete breakdown of all the abilities and traits that are available to Sir Balan. Hopefully this video provided you with some useful information while you go through your playthrough with him. Hope all of you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave me a like, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.